think probably execution will be one of the biggest concerns with most foreign investors.
You have 250 plus investors attending the conference today. What's the sense you get from them? Are they saying that India's corrected quite a bit and now it's looking relatively attractive again, or do they believe that there's more pain left and they'll probably get better entry opportunities down the road?
It's interesting. Just speaking to investors over the last 2 days, there is a lot of preoccupation and a lot of talk, as I mentioned before, about inflation and various scandals. And so I think investors are preoccupied with those particular themes. And as a consequence, I think that's why you're seeing some concerns showing, particularly from overseas. Just looking slightly forward, I get a sense that if you can get through some of the inflation pain, if the RBI can prove they have it under control, i.e. get ahead of the curve, which could happen in 6 to 9 months from now, that people will be a little bit more comfortable with the market. I guess on the various scandals, etc., the sense I get is that the more that happens now, i.e. the more that comes out to the open, the better it is for the market in the longer term. So if anything, from a foreign investor standpoint, they'd like to get some of that exposure more aggressively out there through the media, etc. But that clears away some of the uncertainty. So I get a sense that if you have a feeling that we've exposed most of the corruption locally and also managed to get ahead of the curve regarding inflation, that if the market has dropped too much further, I think that potentially people would actually start to buy once again. I was talking to an investor yesterday who was also pointing out clearly there's this big switch from emerging markets into developed markets, but already the US is outperforming about 30%, from peak to trough, if you like. So if you were going to make that switch from India to the US, you should have done it by now. And if you haven't, you already missed the first 30%. So I just get a sense if we can get ahead of the curve on some of those domestic issues, then I think people will look for a buying chance rather than continue to sell.
In the context of what you just said about the scams and the governance issues, how important would the union budget be this time? Because a lot of people have been waiting for some time for some policy signals from the government which would convince them that this is not a situation of paralysis as might have been construed as the case over the last couple of months.
Yeah. So, I think investors globally, whether it be India or Egypt or Tunisia, they want to see governments in control. They want to see governments who can react in a positive way. And I think when you see that happening, whether it be Indian domestic issues or whether it be government changes in Egypt, you see some sort of control. And that's what investors want to see, but what that does is takes away some of the uncertainty. So I think regarding budgets and policy changes, I think if it feels to investors like they have a handle on what's happening domestically, whether or not they can solve everything in 2 months or 3 months or even 3 years, I think the fact that the government has the control on it, I think will make a big difference to the way investors see India.
You have a good conference, Rakesh. Thanks very much for your time today. That's the head of sales and sales trading in Asia from HSBC attending the conference today, the first of the big investor conferences on India. Doesn't look like they have their checkbooks out though, because the way the market's slipping is quite alarming now at the low point of the day at 53.25. So that's a little scary. And now 5400 looks quite distant, and not a surprise that 5400 calls have been written quite so aggressively, as you just heard a while back. Rahul Mohinder joins in.